I hold my hair up like this. I've been holding it up like this because if I put it down, I am going to start crying. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I got new braids, but these boys is so tight.
And I was like, putting those braids in, they were long, like, to her waist. It's like weights on your follicle. Just think of putting little half a pound weights on those follicles. Would you want that on your follicle? Even if you had to hold a 5-pound weight for a month in your hand, wouldn't your arm feel tired? Wouldn't you be like, I got to get rid of this weight? That's what your follicles are telling you.
If someone told you the protective style on your head right now might be exposing you to cancer-causing chemicals, would you believe them? Because in 2025, Consumer Reports tested popular synthetic braiding hair and found potentially hazardous chemicals in every single sample, including carcinogens and heavy metals. And that's just the chemical side that most people never even think about. But what about the mechanical side, the obvious one? A 2018 clinical report published in a Canadian Medical Association journal stated that traction alopecia affects about 1 in every 3 women of African descent who wear high-tension styles, which is hair loss driven by repeated pulling over time. So how did something linked to tension damage and the chemical exposure end up with the word protective in front of it? It's contradictory and it sounds unreal, and that's why you don't have to take my word for it. Let's investigate. Start at the very beginning. Before anybody called it protective styling, it was just how we interacted with our hair. Black hair was never simply just hair. In many African societies, hairstyles carried meaning, identity, age, belonging, status, spiritual conviction. Hair was language. And the process of having your hair braided mattered just as much as the final look. Our hair was cleaned, oiled, detangled, stretched, styled, but not to hide it, to maintain it. Back then, the goal wasn't to disappear the hair for months. It was to care for it and still wear it. Today, however, protective styling feels like something else. Not protection, concealment. And I'm not judging anyone, but I will ask an uncomfortable question. What are we protecting exactly? Like, really? If the only time we actually see our hair is on wash day. Modern protective styling changed the ingredients. Different materials, different weight, different tension, different wear time, different meaning, and different objective. This is precisely where the myth begins. The myth isn't in the styles of itself, it's in the label. Somehow we kept calling it protective even when the title became inaccurate. We accepted things as normal that should have been reevaluated a very long time ago. Especially now that our knowledge about scalp health, tension damage, and hair has evolved. In other words, we upgraded the information but never upgraded the standard or our habits. Knowing really is not half the battle. What we are experiencing today happened somewhere in the modern natural hair movement, where the word protective turned into a stamp, a promise, a sales pitch. And this is where protective became a loophole. As long as you post a length retention photo, that really was enough. Nobody asked about the quality of the hair. Nobody asked about your hygiene, the build-up information under the style. As long as there was some semblance of a length retention, that was seen as enough to call a style protective. We have box braids, bohemian braids, passion twists, and these styles look amazing. There's no debate about that. But a lot of these styles are designed for appearance first. Parrot becomes an afterthought, and in many cases, it's actually never even a thought at all. Realistically, if the goal is protection, Your own hair being in a low tension style will usually do the job better than any heavy add-on that pulls on your hair for weeks ever could. But that just does not fit the aesthetic of what protective styling is today. And that's where the shift occurs, where you see it's more so protective branding than protective styling. The word doesn't describe what the style does, it describes how we choose to defend it. Protective turns into a shield. It shuts down questions immediately. And that's really why we normalize the warning signs. Many times we see individuals with thinning hairlines and you hear a person saying, oh, well, it's genetics. If you have a burning scalp, well, that's pretty normal. And if you experience bumps, then you say, oh, I have a sensitive scalp. This is usually how these conditions are approached rather than really evaluating the action that is causing these effects on the body or on your hair. In this case, on your hair. But clinically, those aren't just inconveniences. Those are signals. Traction alopecia is hair loss caused by prolonged or repetitive pulling on the hair. It often starts at the hairline and temples, and it eventually becomes permanent if pulling continues long enough. That's what makes it cruel. It starts quietly. Tenderness, little bumps, a style that feels a little bit too tight, but you tell yourself, okay, it's gonna loosen by tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes a week. And before you know it, you have in a protective style, a style that lasts for over 6 weeks. And when you finally remove your braids, you realize that your hairline is gone, or you have bald patches upon removal where the hair used to be. This is even so common that there's a clinical cue that doctors look for. It's called a fringe sign. These are the tiny hairs that are left on the front edge while the rest of the hair thins. That is a warning sign of hair loss that could become permanent, but as a child growing up, that's normal. That's normal to see your hair in that state or see others with their hair in that state. That's just the normal operation when it comes to, or the normal routine when it comes to having protective styles. Have normalized pain and we've made it into our culture. The style hurts. The programming we've received is that it's normal and it should be ignored, when it's actually us learning from a very young age to ignore what our body is saying to us, ignore the obvious signs that something is wrong, ignoring a clear mechanical problem. I remember growing up having instances where my hair was being braided, or after my hair was braided, experiencing like really intense headaches for days on end. And I found out that there's actually a medical classification for that. It's called an external traction headache, meaning that sustained pulling on the scalp can literally trigger headaches. If you're getting install headaches, chances are you're not just tender-headed as many would say. It's probably traction. If it hurts, then it is not protective. Pain is not a requirement. Pain is a signal. And even beyond the mechanical damage, there's another layer that people are kind of oblivious to. The products we use on our hair and scalp can come with its own residual effects, and that's a rabbit hole that goes really, really deep, because when something sits on your scalp for days, weeks, and sometimes months at hand, my mind immediately goes to, what is my skin absorbing? What's building up? And how is my scalp reacting to all of this underneath? And that's why what you put on your scalp, it truly matters. Because studies show that a follicle isn't just there to hold hair. They actually can act like a pathway for substances to penetrate even faster. That's why I partnered with Locklicious. Locklicious is a Black-owned brand focused on products for textured hair, and I've been using their products for approximately a year now. What I appreciate is their approach. They are 100% natural ingredients, and These products are designed to support scalp health and moisture without the heavy buildup. For example, I use their growth oil frequently to support and nourish my scalp, which is ultimately the foundation of healthy hair growth. And their rose water hydration mist is a gem. I'm actually currently out of it because I've been using that product so much. I love it. It's lightweight, it's easy to refresh with, and it helps to keep my hair hydrated without it having to be drenched. Real protection doesn't start with the braid or a particular style. It starts with the scalp, supported by a simple, clean routine. If you want to check them out, I will have all of Locklicious' information in the description below, as well as the products that were mentioned. Thank you again, Locklicious, for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the myth. Operating covertly is what we call hair that we attach to our scalps. What we're attaching to our heads are synthetic fibers. For some reason, the thought of synthetic fibers don't really send off alarms because we just think of it as plastic, but it's not just plastic or harmless plastic at that. It's engineered material. It's engineered to hold shape, to resist flame, and to mimic texture. And that comes with its own set of disadvantages. In 2025, Consumer Reports tested popular synthetic braiding hair and reported potentially hazardous chemicals in every single product they tested. Harvard's Public Health Review highlighted findings including benzene in some products and unsafe levels of lead in others. So it goes beyond just mechanical damage. It's exposure to some very toxic cocktail of chemicals. And unfortunately, this isn't occasional exposure. These hairs are worn for weeks, sometimes months. And to add to that, processes like hot water sealing, indoor installations, limited ventilation, heating those synthetic fibers, all of these things actually contribute towards it being even worse, unfortunately. Studies have shown that heating certain synthetic hair can release volatile organic compounds, and these compounds have its own negative effects on our health. I've done a video dedicated to wearing of synthetic hair, and I'm gonna link it above so you can check it out if you want to have more information on this. And the rabbit hole with the entire industry goes deep, so check out my deep dive on that if you want more information. But to be clear, does this automatically mean that everyone will get sick? No, not at all. But it does mean that even if you have a low tension style, it still can't be classified as protective if you're using material that is hazardous, material that has cancer-causing chemicals. It cannot be called a protective style if the hair that you're using to put on your head to protect your hair is potentially leaking toxic chemicals into your bloodstream. Protective shouldn't even be in the label anymore. That title should be revoked. People often say, my scalp was on fire, my edges disappeared, I had bumps, I just had to take out those braids. And these conversations are pretty normal. It is communicated so often that you don't even realize what you're saying, as if this is just the price that you have to pay. Medical literature has documented irritant reactions from synthetic hair in many users, and I'm really glad that this is something that has been done because it's something that has always been said, but the science is now catching up to prove that what is often believed to be just in your head is actually a real life concern. So many times people say, oh, you're just sensitive, but it's actually inflammation. Your body's responding to these toxic chemicals. And so we have inflammation plus tension. There is no correlation with protection. What exactly qualifies as protective? And no, we are not throwing away braids. We're just redefining the standard. Somebody has to do it. This entire process belongs to us, so we are allowed to redefine it as we see fit.
Just reshaping the idea of braids. braids are not protective. It's an installation style. So that's why I always tell people you're installing braids in your hair, and it's a high tension installation style. It's not a protective style.
So what is a protective style?
A protective style would be if you took your hair and you twisted it or you braided it. That would be a protective style because your hair is tucked away. You're not putting the weight of additional hair. I was just telling a lady at Essence Fest, she had the braids in and she's experiencing some CCCA in her crown area.
So we'll start off with what is a protective style? A protective style must reduce mechanical damage. It should be low tension. It should have manageable weight if artificial hair is going to be used, although we discussed why it probably should not be used unless it is, let's say, a plant-based hair. And you should also have access to your scalp. A time limit should also be implemented. You shouldn't be wearing the hair all the time, or you shouldn't have your hair in a particular style 4 months on end. There must be breaks between installs. And this is especially in the case of addition of synthetic hair. I know many people might be tempted to say that's why I only use human hair, or that's why I only use wigs. And I'm sure I've uncovered a few things that you may want to know about those wigs, the source of the hair, the entire lace front human hair industry. So you should definitely check out my video on the lace front wig. Realistically, wearing your own hair with the criteria above is going to be the most sustainable and the safest option. But if you must add hair, follow the guidelines that will help to amplify the true protective purpose or intent behind having these styles installed. It hurts, loosen it. If it's heavy, reconsider even putting that on your head to begin with. If it stings, you must adjust it and adjust it soon. If it triggers headaches, then it's not protective and you should probably eliminate it altogether out of your routine. Protection is not a hairstyle. Protection is a result. Our ancestors didn't braid to trade hairline and health for aesthetics. They braided as care, as art, as identity. The myth isn't the braids. The myth is the label. Because even styles that hide your hair can damage it and you in the process. A style that looks neat can still be causing injury. So the next time someone says protective style, ask the only question that matters. Protective for who? For who exactly? For your hair or protective for the industry? And if you're ever taken out of style and thought, why does my hair feel worse? You're not crazy. A lot of us have been paying for damage and actually calling it maintenance, length retention, protection. And that's the myth. If you've received some type of value from the content here, be sure to share it with someone else so that they can also extract the same. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and until next time, shalom, shalom. Most importantly, shalom.